Giants Nation, let's ride. Welcome back, MTN Giants Podcast. The Giants have signed Russell Wilson, 10-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, now 36 years old, signs a one-year deal worth up to $21 million, $10.5 million guaranteed. The Jameis Winston QB1 era lasted a whole 4 days, and this signing right here can potentially give us a lot of clues about what the Giants want to do in the draft a month from now, so we'll talk about that. Obviously, we'll talk about Russell Wilson, how he fits in with this team, what should we expect at this point in his career, and as this Adam Schefter tweet says, with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston at a roughly combined $14.5 million in 2025, another quarterback up high, meaning in the draft, can still be an option. That's according to Adam Schefter. How do I interpret it? The interesting thing about this is the Giants can look at this in two different ways. Number one is they did not want to lose out on the chance of signing Russell Wilson, having Russ go to the Browns, and then having Rodgers go to the Steelers, and the Giants be left with nothing. So they might have felt this sense of urgency to get it done. Let's just get Russ in the building, which is what I said 2 podcasts ago. I said at this point, with Rodgers dragging this on, you might as well just sign Russell Wilson. I preferred Aaron Rodgers. I would have liked him over Russ, but the Giants couldn't really afford to miss out on both. If the Giants had waited, and as I said, like if Russ went to the Browns, Rodgers went to the Steelers, the Giants are left there with their pants down. And what if Shedeur went second? What if Cam Ward went first? Then you're going into next year with Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito. You just can't have that, especially in a season where Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are fighting for their lives. You cannot have just a Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito quarterback room and think it's all going to work out. You could also look at this in a way of, well, Cleveland is going to take Shedeur Sanders. Maybe the Giants know something that the public doesn't. And at that point, maybe the Giants were like, you know what? We're not going to get one of these top 2 quarterbacks anyway. We're most likely not getting Rodgers. Let's just sign the next best option in Russell Wilson. Let's just stop playing this game. Stop waiting for an answer in the draft. Let's just sign Russ now because in all likelihood, maybe the top 2 quarterbacks are gone by the time the 3rd pick comes around. There's also a third possibility where the Giants did their scouting on Cam Ward, who I think they would have taken if he had fallen to 3, which I don't see happening. And then they scouted Shedeur Sanders, and maybe they didn't think Shedeur Sanders was worthy of the 3rd overall pick or even taking in the 1st round. And if that were the case, then Joe Schoen does what I would say was the responsible thing and not just force a quarterback pick like Dave Gettleman back in 2019. And if he didn't find any other quarterback not named Cam Ward worthy of the number 3 overall pick, then you sign the next best realistic free agent out there and Russell Wilson. So that could be it as well. What my gut tells me, and this is completely me just guessing, just based on the situation, everything we know, how the Giants move with Joe Schoen, like this is just me speculating. I think they're not big believers in Shedeur Sanders. There was way too much smoke about Shedeur going to the Giants. There was this Adam Schefter little 2-minute clip on Pat McAfee today. Just a lot of weird stuff coming out as it pertains to Shedeur Sanders going to the Giants. And I'm like, why would that all come out? Like, are the Giants that dumb? And they've done this before with the Leonard Floyd thing and with Devontae Smith. We've seen it before. But would they be that dumb to just tell everybody, like, oh, we really want Shedeur Sanders when the team above you in the Browns seems kind of conflicted on whether to pick him or not? So ultimately, my gut's telling me that the Giants are not interested in taking Shedeur Sanders at 3. It's disappointing because that's what I wanted. And therefore, they're going to go best player available at 3, whether that is, almost said Jalen Carter, whether that's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And that's a whole debate for another day. We'll probably make a whole different video about that, but that's a great debate, honestly. I don't think either side's wrong, by the way. If you are a Carter guy, if you're a Hunter guy, like I'm not going to fight you too hard on it. I do have a bit of a preference myself. I'd probably say I would take Hunter right now, but if someone said Carter and gave me a whole bunch of reasons why, I'm not going to say, oh, you're a dummy. I can't say that. They're both possibly superstar level players. I don't like saying generational. I think there's a chance Hunter's generational because of the versatility and playing 2 positions, but I don't know. I just don't like throwing that term around. But they're both potential superstar players. Most people would think they're the best two players in the draft, no doubt about it. But what I think is the most likely thing to happen here, and I especially thought this after I saw a Jordan Ronan tweet from 13 minutes ago, he said Russell Wilson is signing with the Giants with the terms and situations suggesting he's the starter for this season. Two veterans and maybe even a quarterback in the draft added to the mix. With the way that's worded and just the entire understanding of the situation, I think if the Giants felt great about their chances of getting Shedeur Sanders and them actually liking him, I don't think they force a Russell Wilson signing, at least right now. Because realistically, they could have waited. I don't think Russ was ready to sign with Cleveland. I don't think he was really too keen on the idea of going to Cleveland anyway. So what I think happens now is, of course, they sign Russ, they sign Jameis first, Russ second. And I think what they do is I think they get a quarterback in day 2. I think they might go about it that way. I don't love that because I know there's Brock Purdy. I know there's Dak. I know there's Tom Brady. I know there's Russell Wilson. I know these things happen, but in most cases, the great quarterbacks go in round 1. I know it's not all the time, but in most cases, that is how it goes. So whether it is Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck, who I believe they scouted today at the Louisville Pro Day, who actually I'm not against it. I know the injury history and the age is two very big red flags, but just watching him play, I think Tyler Shuck's actually not that bad. So maybe he could be the next Brandon Weeden, and it looks terrible. But, if the Giants took him in round 4, I'm not going to care. That'd be fine with me. I think there's enough talent there. Is that exciting? No, I don't think any of this is exciting, by the way. I didn't look at the Russell Wilson breaking news tweet and throw my hands in the air and say, oh, this freaking team, they're a bunch of morons. I didn't say that. It was more whatever. It's not a bad thing, and I don't think it's a great thing either. It's good security. As I said 2 podcasts ago, you don't want to be left with your pants down when Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh and Russ goes to Cleveland. You don't want to be in that situation. So you do the responsible thing. You just sign Russell Wilson. It's not the best thing in the world. He might be the 25th best quarterback in football. Maybe 20th. I don't know if 25th is fair, but whatever. And now you at least have 2 guys that you can put out there next year. You probably don't know what you're getting with Jameis Winston, as I said last video, but still, Jameis Winston's fun. He can push the ball downfield. So can Russell Wilson, although he's way more responsible and sometimes too responsible, too conservative with the ball. But unlike Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson will actually push the ball downfield, which I like. So Russell Wilson last season, he missed the first 5 games with the strained calf injury. I don't know why he was doing that certain drill he was doing. Oh, he was doing one of those drills where you push a sled. I feel like that's more of an offensive lineman, defensive lineman thing, even linebacker maybe. I don't know why your quarterback was doing that, but anyway, so that happens. The 35-year-old Cavs did not respond well to it. We know Justin Fields came in and went 5-2 as the starter. Russell Wilson came in, and the Steelers actually hit the ground running. They were 6-1 in their first 7 games with Russ. They lost their last 4 in a row. Well, I guess 5 in a row if you include the playoff game. So in total, Russell Wilson went 6-6 last season. The stats were not that bad. Completed 63% of his passes, had 16 passing touchdowns to just 5 interceptions, 7.4 yards per attempt. He was 15th in average depth of target. If you break that down and make the minimum attempts higher, he was 9th in the NFL in average depth of target. So as I said, Russ will still push the ball downfield. I feel like with Russell, you're getting a guy who can either dump it off to the flats or a guy who can just throw a good moon ball for 40 yards. There's not much in between. There's some in between, but it's not really his game at this point in his career to go over the middle. He did have some nice seam throws to, I think it was Pat Freiermuth last year. They had a pretty good connection, but I don't know. I just don't see Russell Wilson attacking the middle of the field like crazy. As I'm going back now, I'm looking at his next-gen stats, passing charts. I don't want to just spew out some bullshit. I want to make sure I'm correct about this, but I feel like when I watched the Steelers play last year, it wasn't too much over the middle. I mean, yeah, there's not much between the hashes. Russell is way more of a attacking the sidelines type of guy. He'll throw a good 50-50 ball. As I said, he'll throw a good moon ball still. There was a pass from the playoff game that went 46, 47 air yards. That's solid. So I think with Russ, the intermediate passing game is not going to be too ideal. those passes from like 15 to 25 yards. You're probably not going to see many of those, but when he's throwing like 30 plus yards, it looks good still. So we have that going for us. There is some mobility to his game. It's not tremendous, but he had 219 rushing yards last year. That's not bad for missing the first 6 games. The guy's not a statue, but I do think he needs a lot of things to go right around him. If we get the same offensive line we had the first half of last year, which, look, it wasn't the best offensive line. It was fine. It was league average. But if they can give Russ like a league average offensive line, because really the Steelers' offensive line was pretty bad last year. I saw on PFF they were ranked 27th last season, so yeah, their offensive line was bad. The Giants, when healthy, are better. So that's an improvement there for Russ. The weapons I don't think the weapons in Pittsburgh were that great, to be honest with you. And it seemed like when George Pickens missed those games with that hamstring injury, he really fell off Russell Wilson. So I think that really correlated. So Pickens missed weeks 14, 15, 16. And Russ in those games, he actually wasn't like terrible. I thought it'd be worse, honestly, but you can tell the offense took a bit of a step back. They went 1-2. Their only win was against Cleveland and Jameis Winston. But I feel like Malik Neighbors and Slayton and Wandale, Theo Johnson, Tracy, I feel like that's better than Pickens, Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, Najee Harris. I like Jaylen Warren, but still, I think the Giants just give Russell Wilson a better situation overall. And look, his offensive coordinator last year was Arthur Smith, and we know about his reputation, whether it was, mainly with the Falcons, but before that with the Titans. He had good success with the Titans, especially with Ryan Tannehill's whole resurgence, but Arthur Smith is looked at in a bad way for a lot of reasons. He does not use his best weapons to their highest ability, as we know. So you could argue that Russell Wilson, better offensive line with the Giants, better weapons with the Giants, better coaching with the Giants. I mean, so we have that going for us. The defense, I do like the Giants defense this year. I'm not ready to say they're Pittsburgh Steelers level, but I'm looking now, like the Steelers defense last year was 8th in points allowed. Like, can the Giants maybe do that if things broke right? I mean, it's not impossible is what I'm saying. And overall, let's be honest, it's not exciting. Once again, I was not jumping for joy at Russell Wilson signing here. I might have last year. I would have been more excited last year. But you look at the last 2 years of Russell Wilson's career. This is 26 games of a sample size from 2023 to 2024. Russell Wilson's 65 completion percentage, 42 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. I mean, the Giants have not had a quarterback at this level in a long time. I know 2022 Daniel Jones gets a lot of people excited, and sure, he was efficient and was a good runner, but in terms of passing, the Giants have not had a quarterback at this level probably since 2015 Eli Manning. Like, if you take Russell Wilson's stats over the last 2 years and average them over 17 games, you're getting 3,600 yards, the 65 completion percentage, 27 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That would be the best Giants quarterback season in a long time. So, like, even if Russell Wilson comes in here and is the same thing he's been the past 2 years, it's not that bad. It's still an improvement, a major improvement over Daniel Jones over the past 2 years, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, whoever. So, yeah, it's somewhat exciting, but getting Russ at 36 as compared to 30, 31, yeah, it takes off a lot of excitement, I'm not going to lie. But it's going to be cool seeing Russell Wilson out there with the C patch and the Walter Payton patch. Like, it's gonna look pretty cool at times. Is it gonna result in a Super Bowl? Probably not. Is it gonna result in a playoff berth? I would still lean no. But I think Russell Wilson and even Jameis Winston behind him, if he has to play, if Russ got injured or something, which I feel like, by the way, Russell Wilson's injury history is pretty darn good. He missed those games in 2021 because his finger got bent like 90 degrees, which that's just kind of unfortunate. He just threw the ball, hit a guy's helmet. His middle finger was bending the wrong way, so like I can't say you're injury prone. He got benched by Denver in 2023 because they didn't want to possibly have him get hurt and have to pay him extra money. And then last year, yeah, he had that the training camp injury with the calf. That was unfortunate, but still nothing like major. So I think Russell Wilson's durability, assuming that calf is fine, he should be good. But as I was getting to, it just sets a good baseline for this Giants team, which might not be the best, especially if Arch Manning goes out there and looks tremendous next year and Giants fans might be clamoring to draft him. Russell Wilson does get you a baseline of like 6-7 wins. I don't think the Giants are going to be complete ass like they were last year, because when you come into a season with a Daniel Jones and a Drew Lock quarterback room and DeVito, it gives you the possibility of being a 3 or a 4 win team, which is what happens. But when you enter with a Russell Wilson, a Jameis Winston, and once again, Jameis can look great on certain days. He had that game versus the Ravens, which we talked about last video. He went out there and beat the Ravens. Like, that's awesome. Like, Jameis Winston will win you random games he's not supposed to, because one week he'll look great, the next not so great. But anyway, just the floor with Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston has risen so much for this team, and I just don't really see a scenario, and this could be a very cold take, but I don't see a scenario where the Giants are winning 3 or 4 games again. I just don't. So whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know, but is it enough to save Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen's jobs? I mean, look, there's still a lot to be decided. I think a lot can happen in the draft, especially considering the Giants pick highly in this draft. I'm trying to just look at Twitter now before I log off. I mean, Benjamin Albright, if you trust him, he said adding Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston will not take the Giants out of the market in the draft for a quarterback as well. I just keep seeing people saying that a 1-year deal for Russell Wilson should not take the Giants out of the quarterback market. And sure, maybe it doesn't entirely, because as I said earlier, I actually can very well see them taking one in round 2 or 3 or 4. Like, if Jackson Dart's sitting there at pick whatever they are, 34, 35, are the Giants really going to pass on that? I don't know. With the Eli Manning Ole Miss thing, I could definitely see it happening. And I wouldn't hate it, by the way, but still, like, I love Shedeur Sanders. So if Shedeur goes to the Jets and has like a great career, I'm probably going to be on here even more miserable over the next decade or so. So I'd rather that not happen. But overall, I think the Giants did a responsible thing here. Could it be to save jobs? I mean, yeah, it could, but I do think it was smart overall to just make sure you secure Russell Wilson. I would have signed Russ first. I know maybe it just worked out differently for some reason. Jameis was signed first, but I would have just signed Russell Wilson first. Because I'm curious, like when Jameis signed here on Friday night officially, did he know that Russell Wilson was coming 4 days later? It's just weird to think about. So I don't know. I don't know if that stuff even matters. They're 1-year deals. I think Jameis was 2, but Russ is a 1-year deal. It was a bit surprising. I did not see it coming. I thought when they had Jameis Winston, I figured they would just see how the draft played out, and if they didn't get a quarterback they like in the draft and Russell Wilson still happened to be a free agent, which maybe he would not have waited that long anyway. I thought maybe at that point they could have signed Russell Wilson. So for this all to happen like in the same week, it's pretty shocking. But once again, I don't hate it either. It's like you did the responsible thing. It's you kind of raise your hands and go, it's all right, it's fine. Is Russell Wilson a cornball and could be tough to deal with behind the scenes? I mean, maybe, I guess. Some teammates might give him the side eye at some points. I mean, the Giants have an all-time like teammates giving them the side-eye quarterback room. Like, remember the Jameis Winston eating a W video? I just did this sign. W? I'm trying to think of how you would do that. I don't want to flip off the camera. Someone eating W's. And you had some teammates like I think Deshaun Jackson's reaction to that was hilarious. I'm pretty sure it was Deshaun Jackson. And then Russell Wilson, obviously, like there was that great meme of Melvin Gordon, I think it was, looking at Russell Wilson on the sidelines, like giving him the side eye back in his first year in Denver. So I feel like in terms of that and teammates kind of looking at quarterbacks and giving them the side eye, the Giants have an all-time quarterback room for that. But overall, I think Jameis Winston, for the most part, is a well-liked guy. Russell Wilson is probably more so well-liked by his teammates. I haven't heard like too many complaints, or at least valid ones. There was that story about Russell Wilson doing like I forget if it was jumping jacks or some type of exercise on the team plane, and some guys were not happy about it, but it's just like stupid shit like that. It's not like Russell Wilson is just this a-hole, so he's a weird guy and does weird things. I wonder if there will be a catchphrase. Of course, there was the Go Hawks in Seattle. There was the Broncos Country Let's Ride, which is why I said Giants Nation Let's Ride to start this video. I don't think he did one with the Steelers. There was the one interview, I think it was the first game he started, that one versus the Jets on primetime, and the reporter tried to get him to say like a Steelers catchphrase, and he just didn't say one. So maybe Russ has moved on from the team catchphrases. Like maybe it's Go Blue or Go Big Blue, Giants Nation, Let's Ride. I don't know. Like, it could be something. I feel like there should be like a betting app where you can bet on what the next catchphrase is, or potentially next catchphrase is. I think that'll do it. I come away from this offseason overall. It's not over yet, but for the most part, free agency and all that is mostly behind us. I can't imagine there's that much cap space left. But overall, I do leave pretty satisfied. Of course, I really like the Adebo signing. I was always a fan of his, and Javon Holland was great value if you get him back to what he was before the injuries. Chauncey Golston seemed like a nice buy low opportunity. Maybe there's something more there. And then just a lot of depth at defensive tackle, offensive tackle. So they're at least more set up this time as compared to last year when they had not so much depth in the trenches and had a pretty crappy quarterback room. I don't want to say pretty crappy. It was the worst in football. If you can find me a worse quarterback room than Jones and Locke and DeVito, then let me know. Maybe the Raiders can kind of compete with that. The Minshew and O'Connell quarterback room was pretty bad, but the Giants were bottom 3. So we'll see. Definitely a lot of rumors still to come. I know the draft is, I think, in a month now, April 24th. So we're under a month now. Things should get interesting. A lot of rumors are happening. We saw like the what's his name now? Used to be Pretty Ricky. I think now it's Slick Rick, that guy on Twitter that tries to break all the free agent signings and stuff on Twitter. He had a tweet this morning that said, "It sounds like Shedeur Sanders will be available when the Giants make their pick and the Browns will be taking Abdul Carter." Then you had this other account, Robinson Whitmore, and he said this morning, hearing this morning that Giants are operating as though they will not be drafting a quarterback in round 1. Ward seems a lock at 1. Shedeur to Browns at 2 is likely. Once again, I don't know what to believe. I kind of try to look at the odds every so often of like who is projected to go second overall. And last time I looked this morning, Abdul Carter was about minus 200 to go to the Browns. So I don't know. That stuff can all change though. A lot can change in 29, 30 days. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, of course, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like, subscribe, all that. And I'll talk to you guys next time.